Hi there. My name is Silas, also known as Demonic Robots, and welcome to Clock Tower 3. Clock Tower 3 is a somewhat obscure PS2 survival horror game where we're going to be in the footsteps of a young girl named Alyssa, who is just coming up onto her 15th birthday. If you have ever heard of the Clock Tower series, let me tell you, a lot of that knowledge is not going to help you in this situation because this game is very, very different from its predecessors. It's a lot more campy, it's a lot more funny. A fun fact is the director of the cutscenes that we're going to be skipping in this game is actually the director of the Battle Royale movie. So it has, very wild motion capture. It's very silly in tone. And overall, if you want a scary clock tower that's kind of modern, I would go with Haunting Ground and not this game. Nevertheless, though, it is still a very fun game to do. It has some interesting mechanics, and we're going to jump right into this. So the very first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be playing as Alyssa, returning home from boarding school after 2 years to see her mother, who she had a very kind of weird conversation with. She really couldn't get a lot of information out from what her mom was trying to tell her. So now that we are returning home, we're going to try and check on her, but she is currently missing. And now Alyssa needs to find her. And along the way, she's going to, learn a lot about not only herself, but her family's history. And the first thing that we're going to come up to is a sigil. So a mechanic in this game is the holy water. We can use it to open that sigil right there. And we can also use it to temporarily stun enemies who are going to be chasing us. It's a very important mechanic of the game, and we do need to manage our holy waters properly. There's a lot of sections in this game where we literally just get away with barely enough, and we have it routed down pretty well. So here we go. We're going to pick up the holy water in just a moment. Another interesting mechanic about this game is the panic meter. The panic meter is going to be the bar you see in the top left. It's the kind of that like golden little design thing. That is basically our health bar, but it works very differently. See, whenever Alyssa gets scared at some point during the game, be it from an enemy or from an environmental thing, she will build up panic. If that bar reaches up to full, what will happen is she will go into a state of panic where her movement will be kind of wonky. You won't really be able to control it very easily. And so because of that, you can easily get caught up, enemies can easily catch up to you and kill you, which is not what we want. So we need to make sure that we don't actually have her end up in a panic state, because otherwise that could spell out disaster. There are a couple of ways to mitigate it. One would be using an item which is lavender water, which will reduce it, or you can use a invisible ring, which will turn Alyssa temporarily invisible, and therefore enemies won't hit her. Now the thing is though, you don't actually need to get hit in order to build up panic. An enemy can simply swipe near you, and that's going to be enough to scare Alyssa and raise it up a little bit. So you're not safe as long as you don't get hit. You can still run into some very bad troubles. We're also going to be running into another mechanic here called ghosts. Ghosts are people who have died and have left behind a worldly possession, and we need to find that worldly possession and give it to them in order to progress in some way. Or if it's an optional ghost, then we will get an item from it. So this ghost is looking for an engagement ring. They actually come out of this phone booth. I don't know why they didn't see it with them in there for however long they were dead. But also, you're gonna notice something. This game takes place in 2003. We are currently in the midst of London during World War II. So this game just casually throws in some time travel in there just for you. I'm also going to grab this sigil stone. Normally we only need 2 items to complete the game, and even 1 if you really wanted to risk it and go as fast as possible. This is where we're also going to be refilling the holy waters, but normally we only need 2. However, I'm going to be grabbing a couple of extras just in case we need them. It's better to be safe because this game is very easy to complete runs and finish them out. It has a very nice continue system, and overall it's just a very safe game. But it's really hard to get a world record right now. The current world record is by me, 1:18:09. It is possible to get a sub 1:17, but it's just barely possible. You would essentially need literally a perfect run in order to do so. So definitely a shout out to a lot of the people who have been working on this game for a long time, like Dicey's, Dr. Wobblebottoms, and other people that I'm forgetting. Speedward is another one. A lot of those guys have put a lot of the tech into this, and I hope I get to showcase it off in your marathon, because I definitely think it's a very fun game, and I'll even show off a couple of fun little cutscenes that won't push us over the estimate. Also, that holy water has some insane range. You're gonna see me throw the holy waters at specific spots, and it's just gonna look like, how is that even possible for it to reach? Now, we've been walking around for a little while, and you're probably wondering, what is the goal of this game? Well, you can't really fight back in it. It's very similar to Outlast or Amnesia in the sense that you're going to be running and hiding from enemies rather than combating them like in Silent Hill or Resident Evil. So we're going to be chased by a variety of different enemies, and all of them have their different unique quirks. And at the end of their sections, we're going to be having a boss battle. That is right, we're going to be having a boss battle in this game in the most magnificent way possible. But first we need to get a few things done. So Alyssa is a rooter. A rooter is a young woman of power who is able to battle subordinates and entities who are evil bad guys. And rooters are also able to help spirits move on from this world and no longer haunt the realm. And so that is what we're going to be doing. We are going to be helping a young girl who was murdered basically return to her deceased father and help them move on. We are also going to be stopping the subordinate in this area whose name is Sledgehammer. Can you guess what kind of weapon he uses? So we're going to be skipping a lot of the back story here and a lot more cutscenes. I would recommend, if you really like Japanese movies, to look up the cutscenes online, because they're very Japanese and they're very wild and animated, and it really shows that, like, they were trying to push mo-capture as hard as they could in this game. So we're gonna come right here. So we need to get this key, and then we are going to head up into May's room in order to get an invitation. And we also run into our first subordinate. That's Sledgehammer. So he's gonna be chasing us around. He is the most basic chaser in this game, the stalker. He's basically just going to be following us around, and we can easily manipulate him. There are a few later on that are a lot more dangerous and a lot more difficult to control, but we will arrive to them when we can. And they all work very differently, but in subtle ways that isn't exactly noticeable. Also, we are just going to have Alyssa be a badass and knock out that big dude with a chair. So, actually, no, I'm sorry. She tackles him and knocks him out. Alyssa is definitely stronger than she looks. But now that we have the invitation, it is going to allow us to head into another area, which is the Opera Hall. It's where we learned that the young girl who we are helping move on to the afterlife was going to play in a tournament there in order to have her song hosted on the radio, so her father, who was a military man, would be able to hear it over the radio. And that's kind of the main theme around this. There are a couple of other people, ghosts, that we help save later on, but we have to keep in mind that we're still going to be looking for Alyssa's mother, and we also have hints that her grandfather, who we haven't seen yet, is missing too, and he might be tied to a man that Alyssa met at the very beginning, the Dark Man. So we're going to continue on through this way. This music is also very catchy. I would recommend listening to the soundtrack. They're not the best songs, but they really get stuck in your head. And after this cutscene, we are now in the Opera House. So now we need to go do a few things, but our goal is to get some pliers. We're gonna be doing a lot of work to get these very simple tools, but it will make sense later on. But here we go. We're gonna have another encounter with Sledgehammer, and this is the first RNG part of the game. He's gonna swing. Okay, he gives us a good pattern. He has two possible swings that he can do there. He can either swing that way or he can swing overhead. If he swings overhead, it will panic Alyssa a little bit, and she will get, you'll see the bar raise. And then if he swipes at us one more time, whoops, if he swipes at us one more time, that's a problem, because then she will become panicked at a bad spot. And we don't want her to get panicked at all, which is why I picked up the extra lavender water. Normally we don't pick up that one that I picked up earlier, but that's okay. So we get a little note there. That is going to give us a combination for an area. Also, you're probably wondering, where did he go? Well, in the game, they don't really want enemies to follow you in very bad, like, they don't want them to follow you in specific ways. So for example, during door scenes, if I stood still here, I would not be able to get hit. he won't be able to hit me from that position. So there are a few times where Alyssa is going to be invulnerable. And we're going to enter in the combination right there. It's always the same 103, but you can't actually insert it until you trigger the cutscene and pick up the note, which is why we don't go here at the very beginning. I'm also going to grab this right here. This is another lavender water. And all right, he went down, he followed us through, so we're just looping back around to this area in order to avoid him. He can give you some random patterns. We didn't see him at all, which is really good luck, but sometimes we will see him and he might hit us or he might not and panic us. It really just depends. This game is very much RNG for losing a few seconds of time. And also, jump scare. So if we were panicked one extra time in that area, or I'm sorry, 2 extra times, we would have gotten hit. But otherwise, because of that, we are fine. What we're going to do is we're going to be kind of abusing that camera thing I mentioned earlier. We are going to use that sigil, or use the holy water to break that sigil, but it takes a few seconds. So we're going to run into that locker, and then by the time this is finished, he won't be able to hit us, and we can just go straight on through. That's a fun little trick. It doesn't make any sense how he's not able to attack us in that position. I'm guessing the game doesn't really like you getting attacked off camera. It was the original design, so that's what they were trying to avoid with that, but it does allow us speedrunners to kind of take advantage of it. We don't really do that kind of trick much anywhere else in the run, but that is certainly the most notable version of it. But now that we have access to here, we're going to go to the matches. And then we are going to come over here. All right, so this is another little RNG pattern. He can either attack us immediately or he will wait a second. So he's going to wait a second, so we're going to go forward, throw the water, and then we're going to crawl through here. And yeah, this is another area where he cannot attack us. He's not going to be jumping over that. He'll just walk through that until we go through this doorway. And then he's going to start following us almost immediately after. I don't know how he was able to clear that so quickly, but he struggled when we were in the room. I'm just going to say it was magic. All right. So we have a few more little areas. We are going to lose him here in a second. Sometimes the enemies are random, but not really. There are like very certain moments where you will trigger them no matter what. So as you can see, the chasing music is now disappearing, but he is going to show up right in front of us in a second. Now, normally he's going to come through that brown door right over there and knock us down, but if we run in a very specific way, he won't actually hit us. We also end up with basically 0 panic left. If he does anything, then we're screwed. Now we need to watch him here. If he stops for any amount of time, then we can just run straight through, and he didn't. So because of that, we have to use our holy water on him right here, otherwise he will hit us. If he stops for even a fraction of a second, we will be able to make it to this doorway, and he cannot follow us into this room just yet. All right, now we have the plank, the dreaded plank. So for whatever reason, it is completely random if Alyssa will stumble on this plank. I've seen it happen only one time. I've had it happen to me 2 or 3 times. Usually the average is 4 or 5, and it's like 3 or 4 seconds each time. So we just have to really see what RNG pattern we get. We got 1 so far. Best RNG is typically about getting 1 going both ways, so a total of 2. And it looks like we got 1 heading over to the pliers, which we need. And we're going to turn back around and let's see if we get any other stumbles. I'll also be donating $5 for every stumble we get during the marathon. So that's going to be 2, so $10. I've seen it go all the way up to 7. It really just depends on how lucky you are, how unlucky. Like, see, we got them right back to back, so that's 3. And we got 3. So that would be 15. I might up that as well, make it a little bit higher for funsies, but usually that would be the standard that people could play along with. So we're going to run a very specific way. We're not actually going to hold the railing there. We're going to kind of walk right through him. If you hold the railing, you get stuck on a sledgehammer, but if you don't, then you walk right through. a lot of this game is optimizing your movements. If you're ever like trying to get into survival horror speed running, I would highly recommend this game. It's a very good beginner game. It's very easy to finish runs. It's very easy to learn, and we have a Discord with a lot of members who are still pretty active and friendly and are willing to help. Along with that, we have some very good guides out there as well for speedrunning. So now we are going to be heading all the way back to May's house. Because now that we have the pliers, we are able to cut through some barbed wire and get there. We're also getting chased right now. Sledgehammer is never going to catch up. There are a couple of killers who will catch up to you when you're running and cause some real harm, but we have some ways to get around that. But Sledgehammer is very slow in comparison to Alyssa. He just really hasn't been working on his cardio, so this would be a good time for donations. We also have butterflies right here. If the butterflies touch us, then we get stopped and bad things happen because we get stunned, and I think our panic goes up. Also, for whatever reason, you can't actually pause the game here or open this door until he finishes this line. So you just kind of run into the wall until it lets you open it. But here we go. We get some more backstory in this area on who May is, but we're also going to be introduced to something called an arrow, a repellent arrow. It's that green thing right over there. And you're probably wondering, why does she need a repellent arrow? She doesn't have a bow. Well, like I said, she is a rooter, and rooters have magical abilities. They are also supposed to find subordinates in entities, and that is a subordinate. So I'm gonna let you guys see what happens. I'm not gonna spoil the surprise for you or anything like that. But here we go. We learn more about the lore, and we find an item that belonged to the ghost who we are trying to save. And now that we have an item, we can help them move on in the afterlife because it was something very dear to them. It's kind of like the ghost that we saw earlier, only this one is much more story impactful and a lot more complicated. So now we are just going to be running back, and we can have time for 1 or 2 quick donations here as well, because we're just heading back to the Opera Hall, and there's nothing that can really stop or attack us. All right. And now here it is. I'm gonna let the cutscene roll for a second and just show you what happens and how this works. So we are now in a boss battle. The game will teach us here in a second how to use boss battles. I will explain the mechanics in a moment, but let me just let you see this fantabulous cutscene. Yep, we have a bow now, and we are going to use it on Sledgehammer to defeat him. Now, what we need to do is we need to shoot him a multitude of times in order to lower his health and to bind him to a certain spot. If we bind him enough times, then what that will do... What that will do is it'll keep him in place. Whoops. As you can see, he's stuck, so he's not going to be able to come over. So we're going to hit him a few times, and what that is going to do is it is going to allow us to summon a magical attack, which is essentially a spirit bomb. And that is going to allow him to defeat us very quickly. These bindings are very difficult, and the enemy patterns are very random. Sledgehammer here, he's very standard. There's nothing too special about him, but here we go. He's going to be defeated, and that is the very first boss fight of this game. All right, and that gives us the Clover of Love, which is part of a necklace that Alyssa has. But now that the Sledgehammer is defeated, we can go and help May move on to the afterlife. I really wish I had time to show the cutscenes, but they are really long ones. I think there's like 30 minutes or 45 minutes of footage for just the cutscenes alone. So it's just not viable to do it in a marathon setting, but definitely if you really like this kind of humor, it's definitely worth it. But here we go. We are now out of there, and we also return back to the Hamilton Mansion, which is her house. We meet also another character named Dennis. He is kind of the sidekick to Alyssa. He's a bit of a puppy, so to speak. I've heard that he is a budget Ron Weasley before, and I think that's a very accurate description. But now we have our grandfather's office key. So now we can go into his office and search through his things. And then we're going to grab his note right here. That's going to teach us a little bit more about the entities. And we also learned that our grandfather has gone on to a mysterious travel that has taken several years for him to return, and we haven't really heard a word. We do know also that Alyssa loves her grandfather dearly. Alright, so now that we have the winding keys, we are going to return back to Alyssa's mother's room. This is the same room where we got teleported into World War II, and now we are back. And I'm going to give you guys a spoiler alert, there's more teleportation that's going to be happening. This game gets very weird. If you played the original Clock Towers, you are probably completely lost, and I can't blame you. This has absolutely no connection to the older games other than there is a Scissor Man in this game, and there's a Scissor Man in that game. And that is only in name alone. Here we go. We have a grandfather clock that we are going to wind to a specific time in order to open up a secret door. And that's going to allow us to teleport to the next area. All right, we just need to wind this one more time and boom, we are good. Alright, so now there is a summoning circle on the ground. We are going to throw our waters onto it, and that is going to activate it. You need 2 to activate it. That's going to be very important later on. And again, we really need to manage it, but the most important area to manage it is going to be coming up. It's going to be the graveyard section. Also, since we are here and we'll eventually get refilled automatically, we're going to use our waters there so we can activate it, because we will need to return there later on. This area is pretty safe. We don't have any stalkers chasing us. We just have these ghosts, but they are kind of tied by a leash to their bodies, so they're not going to be able to follow us too far. That being said, they are very random, and we're not actually going to be able to phase through them unless they are winding down from an attack. We also meet our next people that we are going to be helping, like we did with May. It is a mother and a son who are blind and cannot find each other. And we're going to help them find each other and then move on to the afterlife. More of the ruder abilities, to so speak. We also call this cutscene hallway because it's just a bunch of cutscenes that we are skipping that do a lot to kind of explain the area and set up for the spot. Right now, we still have no clue about where our mother is, but after this area, we will eventually learn more about where she is and what exactly is going on, because Alyssa is essentially going with the flow right now. Also, this text box coming up is RNG. Sometimes it'll be on yes, sometimes it'll be on no. It's just completely random which one it selects, and it kind of goes in streaks. Like for a long time I had it be on yes, which is what you want, but recently it's been on no. Also, this is where we can get trolled by a ghost. If a ghost grabs you, they will stun lock you, and they will also cause you to panic a little bit. Normally getting grabbed during a run, it pretty much means a run dead because you just lose too much time. But during a marathon setting, it's definitely not that big of a punishment. Because other than a few key areas, you're not really going to be chased by ghosts and stalkers at the same time. The game is very lenient like that. So now we have learned about a news reporter's memo, which means we can tell that this is a photographer. And what we want to do is we want to find some film to bring back to his body, and that is going to allow them to develop and allow us to continue the story. We got a hint about where film was, and that was at the Hamilton mansion, so we need to return back there in order to find it and connect it with the reporter. We also get an apparition of Alessa's mom. The game doesn't implicitly apply or explicitly say what is going on at this point yet, but it's really unsure if we are actually seeing a spirit or if it is her mother or hallucination. But there we go. We're gonna grab Dick's desk key. Say that 3 times fast. Dick is Alessa's grandfather. And that kind of also shows that you can pick up items from really far away. This game has very weird item pickup. It's extremely generous. But here we go. We have returned to the Hamilton mansion. And this area, we're basically just going to be getting the film and leaving. We're also going to be grabbing another repellent arrow for safety. Our arrow usage is very, very specific. We need to use them in specific ways because we need them to be set up so our repellent arrows and our binding arrows, which are red arrows, are all working in the same way. Because you cannot actually individually select the arrows, you need to use them in the order you pick them up. So it goes from the most recent to the oldest one, so to speak. And for the final boss fight, it really matters which arrows we have and where they are on our little thing. In fact, I'm not going to pick up this upcoming arrow because I don't want it to mess anything up for my fights later on. And I don't know if I pick it up if it's going to do that. That's like, it's very, very weird. I can also talk about arrows charging. So you can't just shoot off the arrow immediately and have it bind the enemies. What you need to do is you need to charge up the arrow to 5 for sledgehammer, or 6 for every 5 for sledgehammer or the final boss, or 6 for every other one. The only exception to this is if you get a counterattack. If you counterattack an enemy with 5 charges, then it will bind them. That's going to be useful for the Scissorman fight later on. So now is a good time for donations. We're just gonna be running back to the area that we were previously so we can develop the film that we picked up and move on in that section. Alrighty. So the next stalker, or the subordinate that is going to be chasing us, is Corroder, who is by far the most dangerous for the speedrun because he really is the most random one out of all of the bosses. I believe I lost like 15 seconds here on my PB, which is really bad for this game, just because of the random patterns that he gave me. So there we go, we have returned the film back to reporter, and he has dropped some pictures. These pictures reveal a hidden switch, which we are going to use to access the rest of the level. So he's definitely the most dangerous in both when he is chasing you and when he is in the boss fight. So here we go, we're going to activate this switch. Press that, and all right. We also don't really need to worry about filling up our water right there. So we're going to enter here. We are going to trigger Corroder into the battle, and we're going to throw a holy water at him immediately. This game kind of magnetizes the holy water towards enemies, so you don't really need to aim with it and be super precise. It's very good when you're getting chased from behind. So we're going to hit him there. We are going to grab this invisibility band, run past him, and here we go. Also, we skipped the funniest cutscene of the game. I would look up Corroder cutscene on YouTube and watch that. If you're not going to watch any of the other ones, watch that one because it is hilarious. He also has the best laugh out of any of the attackers. So right now we are searching for an item for one of the ghosts that we ran into earlier. And that is going to allow us to cleanse their soul, and it's going to allow Alessa to gain power in order to summon that bow and arrow, because she can't just do it willy-nilly. It has to be under a very specific set of conditions. We're also going to take advantage of some iframes, because Corroder is going to follow us into this room. And then bloop. And he's no longer chasing us. Now this is the most RNG part of these, out of all of these chases. So hopefully we have some good luck here. We have one extra holy wire that we can spare, but I'm gonna grab a refill here just in case. So we're gonna run out of this door. Let's see what we get. All right, we got bad luck. We got the butt slam. Butt slam is not good. So we need to be careful because he will catch up to us much faster than Sledgehammer, and he has an aerial attack that has a much wider range. So if we aren't careful, he can really cause us some damage. There we go. We're going to use the wrench in order to stop this fan, and then Alessa is going to crawl through. And now we're safe from him, right? He can't possibly fit through those fans. Well, not exactly. Enemies like to teleport. That's exactly what we have here. Also need to be careful because those butterflies will attack us, and there is a ghost down here. It is random. I've only been hit by it once and we're good. As long as it's not directly blocking our pathway, it won't grab you. So now we are trying to get Dorothy's sash. That is kind of a little blanket that her son made her, and that is going to allow Alessa to summon her magical abilities. And we're going to go into the second boss fight of this game. This is one of the hardest boss fights, and it is by far the most random. It's very easy to lose a run here. In fact, I would say that a majority of my resets are for this boss, and it's pretty much nothing you can do. No amount of talent is going to help you. Another thing to mention is when I am aiming as Alessa, I'm not able to move. I can't move left and right. It will automatically go towards the attacker. And yes, it is as easy to dodge her attacks as you think it is, where the enemies will literally just side shuffle, or they'll sidestep, and then you can't really do anything. So Corroder likes to do that a lot. Chopper, who is another boss, doesn't do it as much, and it kind of just, you have to learn which enemies like to do it and which ones don't. The only exception to the automatically aiming thing is going to be Scissor Woman, but her boss fight is kind of different than all the other ones. Here we go, we made it back here in time, and now we are going to start the second boss fight of the game. So hopefully this goes well. I'm going to be a little quiet here as I do this. We're going to be matching through all the cutscenes where she gets her magical bow and arrow again. Same exact one as we saw for Sledgehammer. Also, they're not life bars, they are sentences because rooters are judges for these guys. So he is sentenced to 605 years. I think that's very fair for him. Yeah, see, the sidestep screwed me over. All right, that's good.
There she is.
When he does that attack, then we need to immediately hit him.
There she is.
Otherwise, he will hit us.
There she
This fight
is.
isn't going amazing, but we're gonna make it work. And looks like we binded him somehow. I'm not too sure. The binding can be very weird. We don't want to get it this early because it makes it harder to land the rest of them during the speed run, but it only loses a few seconds. And while that's important when you're going for world record attempts, it isn't going to affect us too much here. We mostly just want to get out of this fight alive and intact. And we get another spirit bomb from Alyssa, and look at that, almost all of his health completely gone. And it gives us good luck with that prepare to die.
There she is.
Oh, whoops. Activate that too quickly. You have to have 3 charges in order to interrupt that attack. And sometimes it can be a little hard to tell exactly how much you had. And that is the fight. Corroder is down, and now we can continue on with the rest of Alyssa's journey. So now we're going to be heading back to one of the ghosts that we ran into earlier. We didn't really get to see him. It's an old lady. We give her the shawl and she thanks us, and then bad things happen because the man that Alyssa met, who knows where her mother is, returns and threatens us, and also does some very weird stuff, which I don't even know how to explain it, but essentially he destroys Alyssa's house and turns it into a big old clock tower. That's where they get the name from. Here we go. We come into here and we give back the shawl to the old lady, and then they live happily ever after the end. And then Alyssa gets teleported back to her house, runs into the Dark Man who is attempting to kill her, slash steal her soul, slash some other weird stuff. That was a little glimpse of him right here. We'll get a better look later on, but he sends us down into the sewers, which is right below Alyssa's house. Why she has a gigantic cave and a sewer system with dead bodies, I don't know. This game is very, very weird, and you can tell that they were just having fun with the game. Like, they didn't really care about lore or making sense, and that's why it's fantastic. So right now we're going to be running into the third enemy, the third stalker almost immediately, Chopper. Chopper is very dangerous. He's a lot more cunning. He has a lot more RNG patterns that we can deal with, but are still very annoying. And he also has ranged attacks, which are much worse than the ones Corroder has. So hopefully everything goes through okay. So we're gonna stun him right there. That's gonna allow us to squeeze through. We need to do a lot in this area. Essentially, we need to turn the power on, we need to repair the power, and then we need to get a key card in order to open a locked door. So we need to do this through several different floors. We're gonna start on floor 1. Each floor has a different thing to do with Chopper, and he can do some very different, weird, wonky stuff. It's kind of random, it's kind of not. Hopefully I'll be able to get through this area unscathed. It can be very dangerous, and it's not fun if you have to die and do everything all over. So right now he's going to pop up behind us. I'm going to try and walk in a specific way to get him to attack at a specific time in order for me to walk right past him. I think I got it. I'm going to grab these rubber gloves, and he should be attacking me right here, and I should be able to squeeze by. Yes, perfect. And as you can see, even though... Oh, he threw his weapon. That's bad, but we're okay. As you can see, even though he didn't hit me, Alyssa's panic meter went up. So sometimes it's random. Sometimes they'll swing right next to you and you won't get any panic. Sometimes they'll be super far away and they'll still somehow hit you. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Here we go. We're gonna have another scripted jump scare by Chopper. So we're gonna, again, walk in a very specific way to get this. That might be a little too late. I'm gonna be mashing down my holy water attack to hit him as fast as possible. And we got it. Cool. We're gonna go through here, and now we are returning back to floor 3. This is the first area where it gets really random what he does, so I'm going to be pretty cautious about my movement, and I'm going to be playing it as safe as I can. Thankfully, we don't really need the holy water for anything else other than to stop him, so it makes this area a lot safer, and you can kind of make mistakes. We also have a wire puzzle right here. Boom. So now there is power coming back on. We just need to flip the circuit breaker and get the key card. And then we are home free. Where is he? All right, he's gonna be really far up here. No, he's not. All right, if he hits us, it's bad. It's not, and we also lose a holy water charge because when you press the holy water button, no matter what, it's gonna come out even if you get hit immediately after, and you basically just lose it. All right. So this is another thing. We need to return an item to a ghost's dead body in order to get their item. And thankfully, it's literally right here. The man has an eyeglass case. We have eyeglasses. So all we need to do is get into a good position to pick up the next item. And we got it. So this is the card key. All we need to do now is activate the power, and then we can get out of here and go to our next area, which I will say it's kind of the Hamilton Mansion, but it's not. Also, we are not going to catch that because Alyssa is not very good at catching things. Usually she just gets knocked down and it kind of hurts. So this is another random area. We're going to be returning back to floor 1, and he's going to either spawn behind us or he's going to spawn in front of us. We have enough holy waters to deal with it, but it's very, very awkward. If we miss one, we might be taking a hit, and we can't really afford to take one. We have some backup lavender water, which will make it safe, so no matter what, we're going to get through this area, but we don't really want to use them here. We want to use them elsewhere. All right, so he's going to be spawning in front of me, I think. No, he's behind me. All right, this is good. I can't really see him because of the camera angles. I think he's going to be pretty close behind me, so I'm just going to wait for him to come to me to play it safe, because I think he's like right here. Come on. There we go. All right, and now we are out of there. Sometimes when you're coming around this corner, you just literally run into him because you can't really see him. So I wanted to have him come to me just to, you know, play through this area as safe as possible. Now we have this door powered up and we have the key card, so we're going to use this. And then we're going to refill our holy water and go on to the next boss fight of the game. There's also an arrow there. We're going to be picking that up, but not right now. So I talked about how Alyssa can grab things from really far away. Well, this is probably the most egregious one. We are grabbing the arrow that was right below the stairs. That is right. The hitbox, I think, just extends infinitely upwards to the sky because there normally aren't many vertical areas where you're gonna be picking it up like that anyway, so that's kind of just what happens. But we're back in the Hamilton Mansion and something's different. So what we learned is we have actually teleported back in time again, and we also learned that our grandfather was the person who murdered our dad when we were just a baby. So he is not a nice guy, but Alyssa still wants answers and she still wants to find her mother, so she has she's giving her grandfather the benefit of the doubt. But we start our next fight with Chopper. Hey, buddy. This is random. We need him to walk towards us. That is the best pattern we can get. And we need to bind him as fast as possible. His health bar doesn't matter.
Come on!
All right, this is good. All right.
Get away!
We just need to not have him sidestep too poorly.
Come on! You can't get away!
This is good so far. Sometimes he'll throw an axe at us, and that makes this fight really quick. It's kind of random, but it's really good. But this is totally cool.
Come on!
And we're just going to keep on nailing him with arrows until eventually we get that. So he's not actually defeated yet. He is bound, and then he teleports us away, and we will have to fight him later on. But now we are in a graveyard. This graveyard area is the second worst area of the game because of how random it is. So right now, the ghosts that we need to help are actually our ancestors who were rooters that were defeated by Chopper. Chopper is one of the strongest subordinates. Sledgehammer and Corroder were sent by the Dark Man, and they were kind of a... Oh, we'll grab that item for safety. They were kind of like a little baby steps, right? They're just to test her power, see how good she is, all of that stuff. Chopper is the one that is sent to get her heart, and we kind of learned in the game that they need the heart of a rooter before her 15th birthday, which is in a couple of hours, in order to do some magical, make the bad guy immortal kind of stuff. And in this area, we need to find two crests, the Sun Crest and the Moon Crest. We're gonna go to the oh god, I can't remember the name of it, the Mausoleum. And that is going to be the first thing that we do. So this puzzle, we need to rearrange a couple of pieces in different coffins while dealing with very angry ghosts that are completely RNG as to whether or not they'll grab you. This is one of my least favorite areas in the games because the music isn't very good. It's very droning. There's just a lot of random stuff that can happen, and yeah. But we can only carry one of them at a time, meaning we can't carry two of them, so we need to set this one down and we need to kind of rearrange them in very specific ways. Also, we need to not bump into that circle, otherwise you are automatically teleported, and that's a bad thing. So we can stun Ghost with the holy water, but we don't really want to do it. We want to have as little refills as we can. So let's see what pattern we got. That's an okay pattern if I grab this arrow. They just need to not be in our way when we are grabbing these. All right, let's see if we get grabbed here. I might be able to get away just in time. If we get grabbed here, it's not that big of a deal. We'll panic a little bit, but we also get slowed, which is not good. And we didn't get grabbed by the ghost, so that's good. Bluey is very nice. Reddy can be kind of annoying, but they aren't around for very long. And Yellowy is by far the worst ghost. All right, I'm gonna go for it. Yep, all right, we got it. So the moment you set these stones in, the ghost disappears. That's correlating to it. You see we have the red marker, the red ghost. That's where that comes in. So now we're gonna go say hi to Yellowy, who just always doesn't like to work with us. They just want to cause problems. But let's see here. Yeah, they're coming down the hallway, I think. Yep. So we need to stun them right there, and then we can run past. This is also kind of a good time for donations. Oh god. This is a good time for donations, as there's not really much that goes on or much that we need to worry about. Continue our puzzling adventures. Two down and one to go. We're almost done with this area. And then we'll get to the more exciting part, and I would say probably the most dangerous part of the run. The most dangerous part of the run is the graveyard, and that's because we were getting chased by Chopper, and we cannot use a single holy water. We literally are not able to do so, because if we do, what happens is we do not have enough holy water and we would need to refill, and there's not a very good refilling spot. So to mitigate our need to refill, we pick up items instead, and that makes it so we can get through the area without getting panicked enough to have him kill us. It's possible to do the area with one item, but it is very difficult. Typically, most of the speed runs, including mine, use 2, but here we have plenty of them. We have a sigil stone, which is essentially a second life, so if we get panicked and hit, then we are not going to die. We will just use up the sigil stone. And we have lavender water, which will reduce our panic if we take any, and we will have our invisibility ring as well. So hopefully it goes well. We have the compass of light. I'm sorry, it was a compass of light and compass of shadows, not the sun compass and moon compass. Usually that's what it is. I don't think I can be blamed for that one. And now we have completed that part. So we're gonna come over here. Whoops. Actually, no, we're gonna leave that for now. I forgot that we do both of them at the same time. So now we're gonna go to the next area. That wasn't the graveyard, this is the graveyard. We have our 2 splashes. We need to use 2 splashes on this one. We need to use 2 splashes on the next one. And then we need to use 1 more splash to reveal the compass of shadow. So there are none to spare in order to use them on Chopper, who is going to be chasing us through this area. So we hopefully can get some good luck, and this is where we are going to pray for RNGesus and we're going to go quiet. We also learned that it was actually Chopper was the one who murdered our mother Nancy. So we're going to use the invisible band first. And Chopper is going to compliment us on this. All right, he lost us. That's a okay pattern.
Oh, nice trick.
This area always makes me super nervous because you just really don't know what's going to happen. We need to push these lions in 3 lion statues, and we need to do them in a very specific order. All right, we didn't get hit there. We got a little bit of panic, but that's okay. All right, he didn't throw anything at us. That's bad. I want to try and wait as long as possible to use this lavender water.
Yeah.
All right, so this got a cool thing. We just despawned his axe. So this is actually really good luck. So if he's attacking you there with a melee, he will do the attack, reset his animation, and panic us, and he can basically just swing at us twice, like back to back, which is bad. Also, we're gonna run this way, which is gonna kind of mess up his pathing a little bit. And now it's a mad dash. But if he is throwing an item and we use the compass, then what that does is it sets him up so he... All right, we made it. Whoo! I was nervous about that. We set it up so when he threw the axe, it disappeared. And we didn't get any panic at all from it, which is very, very lucky. All right, so now we're coming up to the second Chopper 2 fight coming up here in a moment. We're going to be actually using the Repellant Arrow for the first time. There are 2 types of arrows, a Repellant Arrow and a Binding Arrow. A Repellant Arrow will do a lot of damage and knock them back. A Binding Arrow will be like a 6 charged arrow. So I'm going to go over here. He's also one of the only boss fights where we don't get a refill on our holy water and we need them later on. So a binding arrow will act like a 6 charge and immediately bind them. We don't use any of those except for the final boss. We have a very specific strategy with him. And we also open up another magical teleportation portal. I don't understand this game's logic either, so please don't ask me. I don't know anything about the lore. There are a few other people who would probably have better answers for that than me. But now we are going to go get something to appease our ruder ancestors and also allow us to bind with them in order to defeat the subordinate. But here we go, we're going to pick up our very first binding arrow of the run. We're not going to be using this, but we are going to be using a repellent arrow. And I do apologize, I said earlier that it was the most recent you use. It's in fact the least recent, so to speak. So your oldest arrow is going to be the one that you use first. It's very confusing. I kind of just memorize which ones to pick up, and then it works out for me. Also, this isn't an arrow that we can use. This is just a key item. It's not a weapon. I was confused my first playthrough. I thought like, oh, this item is really cool. I'm going to be able to use it to like damage the final boss, and I'll save it and all that stuff. But no, it's just a key item. Also, we got to run away, but we're going to be doing something that manipulates this. So we talked about counterattacks earlier. When an enemy is attacking you and Alyssa attacks with a strong enough attack, it does like double damage, so to speak. So we're going to be doing something like that to manipulate him into a very easy pattern in order to defeat him very quickly, because we can't actually hit him until he throws an axe at us, and we want him to throw an axe as quickly as possible. Here we go, more cutscene skipping. So we are going to take advantage of that, and when he comes towards us, we are going to counterattack. Hopefully. Yep. So now he's going to throw this at us. That's going to knock him down, and that's going to allow us to bind him. And this makes the fight way easier. You can do it without that repellent arrow. I know some other runners do it. I just don't like to because it's just way too complicated. Also, he's going to throw that. We're going to knock him right back down with his own weapon. And yeah, now we're just going to continue to shoot him as much as possible. And hopefully he will be dead by the end of this. Sometimes he's still alive. Hopefully that's not the case. All right, now he's definitely not going to be alive because he takes damage, but he doesn't get bound right there. So it works in our favor. And there we go. That is the Chopper 2 fight, and there's no fake out this time. He actually does indeed die from this fantastic spirit bomb. At least he should. Hopefully he does, and I'm not proven a liar. Hey, there we go. So now we get to move on. So we save our ruder ancestors, we free their souls, and we meet back up with Dennis, and we learn that the Dark Man is trying to bind with an entity with our soul in order to live forever. And Alyssa doesn't really like that. So we are going to be trying to stop him, and we pick up a friend along the way. I mentioned Dennis earlier. He shows up in cutscenes alone, but for this random 30-second segment, he's going to be tagging along with us. He's a little dopey, but he's a cool guy. So he's going to be following along here. I don't know why this section happens and why he follows us like this. He is literally in this part. Wait for it. And we never see him again outside of cutscenes. So what happens is he thinks he sees his sister, who was in Africa working as a nurse, and it turns out it is the Scissor Twins. The Scissor Twins have now kidnapped Dennis, and we have to give him our heart, or give them our heart, otherwise they will kill him. Also, that ghost is again random. I want to get an extra lavender water, so I'm going to not get grabbed here. There we go. Normally, we would only use 2 items, the ones that I used during the graveyard part with Chopper, or 1 item even. I know that is indeed possible, but I don't think I've actually seen it in a run. They're trying to theory craft it to make it consistent, but it's just not a consistent area. But we're gonna be grabbing this because this area can be a little bit dangerous. We have holy water to spare, but we want to avoid a trip to get another thing of holy water because we need to power a sigil, which takes 2. So we want to end this area with at least 2 so we don't have to fill our water twice. But if we don't, it's okay. It's only a small time loss. We're gonna grab this mirror right here. This is actually a cool area. So we saw that huge mirror. There's actually 2 mirrored worlds with Scissor Man on one side and Scissor Woman on the other. They don't act too differently from each other. They're more or less the same enemies with different designs and different, hilarious voice lines. But here we go. We are going to activate Scissor Man, who's going to be on this side, and then Scissor Woman is going to be on the other. All right. So we need to come into here. We need to get 3 different keys. The first key is not in here. We actually picked up the first key earlier in the lobby, but this seal is on the other side of the mirrored world. We just can't see it. So we break it in here and it breaks it on the other side. The next key is gonna be down in the basement area. Also, please don't get hit. All right, thank goodness. So we got out of there relatively clean. Again, their movements and where they are is somewhat random, and sometimes they can be very annoying and very dangerous. Scissor Woman is being kind of annoying. Also, another thing, we're able to hit them through walls. Oh, we didn't need to do it there. You can hit her through that wall and it totally works. It's kind of funny. And that was almost a perfect Scissor Woman area, which is really good. All right. So we have 2 keys now. We got the one in the bathroom. We got the one in the receptionist desk. Now we just need to go grab the one that is over here where we got the looking glass mirror. And don't worry, this is not the only area that we are going to be seeing Scissor Man and Scissor Woman. We are going to be fighting them later on. They probably have one of the scariest boss fights for me. I don't want to say the hardest, but it's definitely the scariest because it's very late into the run. It's very RNG reliant, and overall, you could be on a world record pace and just have it die right there. I've seen it happen. I've had it happen.
It's showtime!
Oh, we got the good voice line. Also, we just missed that, but that's okay. Come on, Alyssa, get up. Shake it off. It's just swords to your face. And we are home free. And as you can see, we left with 2 holy water charges, which is exactly what we wanted. I think other than getting hit at the very end there, that was a very good hospital section. So now we are going to the Burrows Castle. Burrows Castle is where our grandfather went 2 years previously, and we get a glimpse of him right here. However, we don't get a very good look, and again, you know, we kind of know at this point that he's a bad guy, but we really don't know the extent to that. Alright, so this is another area where we kind of want to be careful with how much holy water we have. I'm going to be picking up this lavender water for safety. And here we go. We're going to use 3 right here. He's going to follow us. We're going to hit him right there. We're going to throw it to break open this sigil. We got hit there, but that's okay. And here we go. We need to get a bunch of arrows here in order to defeat the boss. We're going to be using 2 of them on Scissor Woman. Hopefully 2 of them. And then we are going to be using the rest. So literally every single arrow that we have been picking up the entire game, we are going to be using the rest of them on the final boss, who is Lord Burrows. Burrows is the owner of this castle. Oh, shoots. This is okay. We're gonna grab this. This is gonna tell us that there are some loose bars in another area that we're gonna be going to in a moment. And as long as we don't get panicked right here, we should be okay the rest of the way. We only need one more. And we made it. Okay. So Scissorman's only gonna follow us through that area. And we're gonna continue on. You also have to remember to keep track of your arrows because they do matter what order you pick them up in. If you forget the order, or you forget how many you have, or if you miss one, your run could just be dead. There isn't really much of a recovery for it. So now Alyssa needs to dangerously scale some cliffs, and we're just going to continue walking. Nothing bad can happen here, and we're just making our way. So that would be a good time for donations. Also, kind of a fun little fact, this game was in development kind of around when Resident Evil 4 and Haunting Ground were, so I think it's just really impressive that Capcom came up with 4 amazing horror games, Resident Evil 4, Clock Tower 3, Haunting Ground, and Devil May Cry, all within the span of like 5 years. I will admit, even though I love this game a lot, I will be the first one to admit that out of all the ones that I just listed, this one is probably the worst one. And it's mostly because it's not that scary, but I think the mechanics are enjoyable, and I think the holy water system makes it a lot more fun and a little bit different than other games like Outlast, where literally your only option is to run or hide. But here we go. Now we need to gather 3 family crests. So we are going to do exactly that. Also, don't mind Scissor Woman. We're just gonna go, throw the ash onto the fire all the way from here. We're gonna stun her right there, and that is going to allow us to get the A crest. We're gonna continue on through the castle, and another little thing is that the crest that we are finding all correspond with names of antagonists and characters that we have met earlier. So A is for Alyssa, N is for Nancy, and D is for Dick. I don't know why they did do Richard, which is his first name. We're gonna do that. We're gonna refill our water here. We're gonna insert the A crest right there. And we are almost done with a lot of the chasing sections. We don't really have very many more areas where we're going to be chased by stalkers. But we do have that jump scare right there. So again, lots of teleportation in this game. It's kind of funny, but yeah, so that's the thing that happens. All right, so this is the other crest that we needed. And now we just gotta shuffle back. So again, we're almost done with being chased, and then it's just 2 boss fights in a row. So hopefully we'll be able to get through those pretty quickly. But yeah, I think we just need to use our holy water one more time. We have 4 to spare, which is nice.
There you are.
And all right, we now no longer have to use any more holy water for the rest of the game. So here we go, we're gonna insert that crest. N is for Nancy, or Alyssa's mother. And there's also corresponding to the people who lived in this castle. I don't remember what they were. There was like Annette, and then there was another N name and another D name. So it's kind of like history repeating itself, so to speak, with maybe reincarnation, something like that. It doesn't exactly make sense. But here we go. We are going to be coming into here, and we have a lot of exposition jumps, both on how subordinates and entities and all of that stuff works. We don't really like, it still doesn't make too much sense, even when you're, you know, reading it. But a lot of this is just a good chunk of exposition dump to basically pay off for what the buildup has been in the story. So here is where we learn that our grandfather has actually found this castle before us, and some things happened. We also learned that Dennis is in very much danger by the Scissor Twins, and we need to go save him. And it's kind of nice that Dennis is the damsel in distress and Alyssa is the one who has to go and save him. It's a very nice, you know, change of pace. All right. So we're gonna enter this crest. Now we get a hallway of swinging axes. We need to be very careful in this area, and we need to time our movement correctly. If we don't time our movement correctly, you see those axes, they will one-shot us. There is no recovery. We do have a sigil stone, so if it happens, we won't die. But yeah, we need to make sure our movement here is good if we want to get the good patterns. There is a way for us to tell. It used to be blind, but now we know, and I'm probably not going to get it, so I'm going to have to wait. We can kind of tell now from the different patterns of that one coming up if we're going to make it. So I saw that it was going up, which means we're not going to make it. We need to wait for that horizontal one to move, and then we can go down here. If you're doing world record attempts, that's a good chunk of time that you can just easily lose, or you can just lose your entire run because you die. So thankfully, we're going to be playing it a little bit careful. We need to go through that area one more time, so we're not safe from that spot yet. But the second time going through is a lot more consistent and a lot easier to do so. So now we're going to be heading to the Guillotine Room. You have to keep in mind that Alyssa does not have her magical bow just yet. So she's not going to be able to fight them just yet. We need to find something to connect with in order to get our rooter powers activated. So basically we see that Dennis is in danger, he needs our help, that guillotine's swinging down, and we need to find a way to save him. And in doing so, the floor collapses and we end up in what looks like Dick Burroughs', our grandfather's, his study, his library that we saw in the office area. We also find that he has been keeping our drawings, and this is the cutscene where we kind of learned that exactly what the master plan is. Basically, her grandfather wanted to gain immortality and he wanted to gain power, so he merged himself with an evil entity, and they both decided that they are going to steal Alyssa's heart and eat it while she's still alive on her 15th, right before her 15th birthday. And in doing so and completing the ritual, they will gain immortality through that. All right, so we should be okay. All right, we're good. Ooh. So now we need to find a way to stop him, and honestly, the best way to stop him would just to literally be leaving and just not allowing him to capture you, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to capture Alyssa, even though they've been trying to kill her as well. It doesn't make too much sense. But now we go, we are coming up to the second to last boss fight with Scissor Woman and Scissor Man. Scissor Woman, I said earlier, is the only subordinate you will fight where you do not automatically lock onto them. So she's a little bit harder and a little bit dangerous. It makes me very scared, but let's hope that nothing bad happens. So matching through more cutscenes. I'm mostly just gonna be focused on getting through this area. So we're gonna come down here. That might be okay. Yep. All right. Whew. Those shots are a lot harder to hit, and if you miss those, the fight is just so difficult and insanely hard to come back from. Scissorman's fight is a little bit different. It's much more traditional, but it's also, again, very scary and very difficult.
Come on, Alyssa. I've a present for you.
All right, we're gonna bind him right here, which isn't the best thing, but it's better than allowing him to escape and have no chance of binding at all. We're gonna spear bomb him, he's gonna be alive, and now we just need to chunk him down. Oh, that's not good that we got hit, and I also just disconnected my headphones, but that's okay, because we don't need sound. Oh, that's not good. We're just gonna keep on hitting him as much as possible, and that's also not good.
I've a present for you.
And there we go. He is defeated. Let me just re-plug in my headphones. Got a little too exciting there. And to get a little preview of how wild these cutscenes can get. But that was the Scissorman fight. It wasn't the cleanest, but you know what? We made it through, and I will take that. So now we are going to ascend up the giant clock tower and confront our grandfather who has merged with the entity and defeat him because he is a bad guy. So right now is a good time for a few final donations because this is just us running to the boss arena. Let me say, this is a very nice set piece. People kind of meme on this game, I think a little bit more than it deserves, but this is very fun to do so. We're also gonna grab another binding arrow. This is the one that basically voids any usage of the charge that we need to do, so we don't need to do that 6 charge. And we're gonna continue on. Now, Burrows is probably the most tech-heavy fight. We really need to be careful with our movement, but it's not as RNG as any of the other ones. So because of that, it's probably one of my favorite to do. Oh, come on, Alyssa, get up. There we go. That being said, it can go wrong very quickly, but even if it does go wrong, there's still a continue. It's just your chance of world record, if you're going for it, is kind of gone. As you can see, a giant clock tower. It only took us until the last 5 minutes of the run to see a clock tower in a game called Clock Tower 3. Also, another example, Alyssa can just pull the lever all the way from there. It's kind of funny. All right, so we're gonna pull that lever. All right. Our one last fight, our one last hurrah. Burrows, get ready. We're going to come up here. He is going to attempt the ritual. Dennis is actually going to save us. And this is where it picks off with us battling against Lord Burrows. He has a few attacks. His swing with his sword. He has this purple orb thing that he'll throw to actually bind you. And he has a pool of blood. So we need to watch out for what his attacks are. He also has 2 life bars. So let's do this. We have to have him swing right there. I'm going to 3, 4, 5. He should attack us. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, he's bound. Cool. So that was the first part of the fight. And so basically we were baiting out his attack and then hitting him immediately after. He was giving me kind of a weird pattern, but that's okay.
There's no escape.
Alright, so I get this in time. Alright, I don't have enough arrows. I don't know what happened, if I missed a couple or I grabbed them in the wrong way, which isn't the best situation right now, but we should be fine. This was what I was talking about. You don't really know if you have enough arrows, so we have to be a little bit careful here, but I think I should be okay.
There's no escape.
Oh, whoops. We're gonna dodge that.
There's no escape.
Alright, he's gonna break out of the bind.
How dare you? There's no escape.
Alright, that should be good. Got a little rocky at the end there, but otherwise that was pretty good. And that was like the worst case scenario. It could not have gotten much worse than that, but I'm glad that we were able to finish up. I actually might need one more arrow to do him in, but otherwise that was a pretty decent Burrows. But it's not done yet. Timer is going to be coming up here after this cutscene. We're going to mash through it. Alyssa has defeated him. She just needs to meet up with her mother's ghost in order to defeat him, and we just need to dodge one more attack.
There's no escape.
And timer is coming up right now. So 1:21:43. Not a too bad time, honestly. Definitely could have gone a little bit faster, but otherwise I'm pretty happy with that, and I hope that was a good showcase of Clock Tower 3. I think it is a fantastic run, and I think it would make a great staple in a marathon. And we get this epic badass ending cutscene in order to finish things off. And that was Clock Tower 3. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this marathon commentary, and I hope you have a wonderful day.